This week we are taking you to Kenya, Nairobi, a city and a country at a crossroads in terms of its massive investment potential. Tonight we're talking about China's role in Africa and we want your opinion. Get it? Yep, here we go. Now go to cnn.com/join. We're about to open up our question of the day and I have little doubt this is going to be controversial. With more than 10,000 firms on the continent, China has become Africa's biggest business partner. China has been funding some of Africa's most ambitious, expensive infrastructure projects. Railways, airports, dams, roads, projects, the list goes on and on. The Chinese are continuing to invest more even as we speak. China is now Kenya's largest creditor, holding around 70% of the total bilateral debt. Only Angola and Ethiopia owe Beijing more. And the worry, of course, how it can all be paid back. It seems Kenyans are growing wary over China's actual intentions.
More Kenyans believe that China constitutes the biggest threat to the country's economic and political development than the United States of America, according to the latest survey.
And China has defended its ongoing projects in Africa in an attempt to dismiss the notion that it is trapping African countries with huge debts through mega infrastructure projects.
The problem is, when the deal is too good, I think you need to think again.
Consequence of failure today is really big, and to assume that the Chinese are going to be kind and generous because of China-Africa relations is incredibly silly.
It takes two to tango. I think we've been bashing China a lot, and there are issues there we shall talk about. But at the end of the day, it's about us and Kenya and the kind of agreements that we sign and how we conduct our business.
That China knows what it wants from Africa. Does Africa know what it wants from China? My answer is politically yes, but economically no.
I don't see them as really a trapper.
Is not really a trapper.
I don't
because now the devil is in the details, and the details is not what we're not told as a country. Right?
So these things stinks. Let's forget about it. Let's talk about politics.
This is all about politics. Our question for you today on cnn.com/join. Should Kenya be cautious about taking giant investments from China? You've heard the critics say it's dangerous, and you've heard President Kenyatta on this programme say that he's happy to partner with any foreign country. cnn.com/join. The voting is now underway. Look at that, 84% of you. 84% of you so far say Kenya should be wary of investments from China. I sat down with the managing director of Kenya Ports Authority, who told me the country stands to gain more from China's billion-dollar investments.
I think you have to look at it in terms of the reason for investment in infrastructure. Infrastructure is an enabler, and it plays the role of catalyst in economic development. Don't forget that investment in infrastructure also does not have any risks, because even in cases of economic downturn, there's significant level of resilience. But also remember that with the railway in place, our economy grows by geometric progression.
Are you agnostic as to where you get your funding from?
I think it's a question of looking at the best deal in the market. Who gives you good money at very low interest rates, combination of loan, concession, grant, and with good grace periods.
And do you sometimes wonder what they want back in return besides interest? I mean, the Chinese, there's, you know the old saying, he who pays the piper calls the tune. Do you, and it's the same with the Americans as well, in different circumstances. I'm not suggesting one versus the other, but it's a tricky position, isn't it?
I don't think so. I think it's a question of give and take. As a country, we stand to gain more. Don't forget that these investments are going to last a century or two, well beyond most of us. And the importance of these investments today cannot be easily estimated in the future. And so I think, given the circumstances we are in, I think it's the best option.
How concerned are you by the latest trade protectionism, obviously on the back of some of the Trump administration tariffs? I mean, after the Great Recession, we saw the first decline in world trade for many years, some decades. Now we're starting to have a slowdown in world trade. How worried are you?
As Kenya and as Africa, we're not very worried because we are an emerging economy. And emerging economies have got their unique exports, basically based on agriculture and basic trade. And that gives us a chance. As the war continues between the big nations, China and the US, Africa has a chance to make their own niche in exports by creating regional blocks. In this mind, I have the East African Community and also the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA. So we can concentrate as small countries, come together and create our niches so that we can have direct markets where we don't have any barriers with the big economies.
Interesting, the views of the President and the Port Authority, but look at that. Now, in all the time we've been doing these joint questions, I don't think we've had one quite as clear-cut. 82% of you are saying that Kenya should be wary of investments from China, and the rest, it's quite clear-cut. The vast majority warning